even though it still feels like summer, we're here for our first membership meeting of the membership meeting year. And month after month, year after year, the Railroad Enthusiast brings you the very best in rail fan entertainment. And tonight will be no exception with For Us is a Rarity, an all-traction program, care of Frank Schlegel, one of the great classic railfan cinematographers of the earlier 20th century. And we'll see it all tonight in all its glory. The Public Service of New Jersey, Lehigh Valley Transit, the 3rd Avenue L, and streetcars in New York City of approximately 90 years ago. So fasten your seatbelts. This should be a great program, folks. And you can't say we never have traction program. Not the NYRRE, but occasionally we do work in traction topics. So tonight is your night. So Steve, take it away. So tonight,
I'll mute everyone first.
I'll mute everyone first.
Okay, I'll start the program and start screen sharing.
Frank Schlegel was a pioneer in shooting trolley and railway movies. Shortly after 8mm cameras, projectors, and film were introduced in the very early 1930s, he was out on the streets of Queens shooting grainy footage of the New York and Queens County Railway. As films and cameras improved, he widened his orbit, particularly of trolley operations, to include the public service trolleys across the Hudson River in New Jersey and the legendary Lehigh Valley Transit north of Philadelphia for a number of visits and fan trips over the years. But he always returned to New York City and its boroughs, the 3rd Avenue Elevated, the 3rd Avenue Railway, and the New York Railways. These are historically significant, not only for recording long-gone trolley equipment and facilities, but also for showing road vehicles, buildings, and people from a long-vanished era up to nearly 8 decades ago. The triangle within a circle was familiar in northern and central New Jersey. Public service operated a dwindling network of trolley lines during the late Depression era, radiating from Hoboken on the Hudson River and Camden on the Delaware River opposite Philadelphia. Public service buses and a few trolleys ran until 1980, when New Jersey Transit took over operations, setting the stage for today's light rail reincarnation. The first scenes are from 1938 and start with a National Railway Historical Society fan trip, initially on the city subway line in Newark. The photo stop was an already established protocol, and the fans are all over the tracks, resulting in a backup of regular cars. We shift to the downtown area of old brick buildings and boxy automobiles. It's a busy scene in the street in front of the Union City Car House as streetcars pass the formidable brick structure. Cars enter and leave the building. A work car is in front of the car. Line 27, Pavonia Avenue, ran out of the Union City Car House. The last trolleys ran on the line on July 9, 1938. This rare shot of a Pavonia Avenue trolley shows a very tired car. This was the Depression. An interior shot shows what well-dressed commuters wore in 1938. A car makes a sharp turn onto the Palisades line near Weehawken. A steamship can be seen between the buildings at the Edgewater Ferry Terminal, served by public service cars. A fan trip finds two fans in front of the special car as it climbs the Palisades near Edgewater. The Hudson River waterfront has a tangle of low buildings. At the top, a trolley and vintage bus meet our car on a reverse curve. An oncoming car prevents an automobile from turning left, causing a 1938 traffic jam. Public Service Trolley Line 89, Hudson River, from the Edgewater Ferry Terminal up to the Palisades to the Bergen County seat of Hackensack, was discontinued on August 5, 1938. The car symbolically rolls off into the sunset. A car on the Palisade line runs past the West New York Car House. It pauses at an intersection. Weathered and weary trolleys are at the West New York Car House. A Palisade line trolley crosses the long North Bergen trestle. Frank Schlegel was intent on filming the line before trolleys stopped running on September 4, 1938. We are riding the front end of a public service trolley leaving Hudson Place at the railway terminal at Hoboken on June 18, 1944. The car climbs to the upper level of the elevated structure. We are on the elevated trolley line that ran over the street from Hoboken to Jersey City Heights. This priceless vignette of Hoboken's historic past shows people waiting for trolleys at small elevated stations, advertising painted on the flanks of very old buildings, and the hustle and bustle of cars running on the viaduct. The L was torn down after the last trolleys ran on Public Service's Hudson Division on August 7, 1949. The track curves and climbs toward Jersey City Heights, with buildings lining the top of the hill. At this point, the car descends to street level. Although there are parked 1930s automobiles, the street is clear of moving traffic, a result of gasoline rationing. The South Kearny line on the Hudson Division was a wartime expedient cobbled together during World War II out of several stretches of abandoned trolley track to serve Federal Shipbuilding and Western Electric. Opened in 1942, it ran from Journal Square in Jersey City to Kearny. Frank Schlegel is riding the head end of a car to South Kearny. The opposing track of the previous trolley line has been removed. A policeman or public service employee waves to the car as it negotiates all the turnouts onto the elevated. Passengers could not board the South Kearny cars if they were not going to the defense plants. The car descends from the elevated at Journal Square and pulls up behind a car on the Jackson Line. The cars turn on the loop. A small storage area near the Greenville Car House on Gates Avenue at the end of the Jackson Line is full of public service trolleys at midday. A Jackson car rounds the sharp curve outside the Greenville Car House. The Jackson Line was bustituted on August 7, 1949. A number of other Hudson Division cars are seen in Jersey City. When was the last time we saw an Esso sign? The car threads its way into the waterfront. Finally, our car arrives at the end of the line at South Kearney. The Spartan terminal has all the trappings of being hastily constructed, with disconnected abandoned tracks running behind it. It's soon time to head back into Jersey City. The car rolls through an overhead truss bridge and bounces onto the private right-of-way in the median of the Lincoln Highway. We end our look at public service cars circa 1944 in Jersey City. The Liberty Bell high-speed line of Lehigh Valley Transit, running between Norristown outside Philadelphia and Allentown, 45 miles to the north, is considered to be the last of the high-speed side-of-the-road interurban railways in the East. From 1905 until service ended abruptly in September 1951, electric cars highballed over an often rural, mostly single-track, beside dirt and then paved roads. It was the paving of these highways that eventually resulted in the abandonment of the railway. It's 1937, and we're riding the head end of an 800 series car southbound out of Allentown, coming off South Mountain. The call box at Quaker Siding is opened. A northbound arch window 800 series car soon arrives for the meet. The old Bethlehem Pike was an unpaved road in 1937. The Liberty Bell route took its name when Patriots moved the bell from Philadelphia to Bethlehem in 1777. Percy was a major stop. Sellersville is next. Northbound car 701 meets our car at Gemmen Siding. At Norristown, the LVT cars were operated over the Philadelphia and Western by P&W crews to reach Upper Darby. Part of this elevated is used today by the Philadelphia Transit System. Heading north, we meet car 700 and a freight motor at Marshall Siding on Markley Street in Norristown. We meet a southbound 700 series car at Gemmen Siding, north of Hatfield, and board passengers at the Solderton station. North of Percy, the motorman notches out the controller as the car crests the mountain through 3 Mile Run. We meet a southbound car at Locust Siding. One of the Lehigh Valley Railroad's streamlined locomotives with a train at Allentown wraps up our 1937 views. Frank Schlegel returned to the Lehigh Valley Transit in the late winter of 1940. The meet is with a northbound local service car at Center Valley Siding. LVT operated local service as far south as Center Valley. This glimpse of a cream and mountain ash scarlet car confirms that it is at least 1940. Here's our first chance to get a really good look at one of the former Cincinnati and Lake Erie cars, holding the main track at Gemmen Siding. Our southbound car meets another of the recently acquired cars at Marshall Siding at Norristown. The square Liberty Bell Limited drumhead is on the rear of the car. Our ride into the city continues on the Philadelphia and Western as we pass through Villanova Junction, and soon meet one of the P&W's famous Brill-built bullet cars. Next up is a Stratford car, with 2 Liberty Bell Limited cars on the layover track as we head into the P&W's 69th Street Terminal to end its run. The LVT car bounces along the edge of DeKalb Pike, north of Norristown. The road has been paved, an ominous indication of things to come. But before that happens, the line will soon experience the boom in traffic caused by World War II gasoline rationing. We reach Center Square, where the track takes off across country to Lansdale. Frank Schlegel returned to the Liberty Bell line one last time for a fan trip in 1951, shortly before service was discontinued on the Allentown-Norristown line. By then, the cars no longer ran through to Upper Darby, but turned back at Norristown as a result of several breakdowns on the PNW. As we pass Emmaus Junction and meet a city car in darker paint, note how overgrown the track has become. We meet a local car at Cooper Siding, and then another 1000. We leave street running on the south side of Percy. Menlo Park, an amusement park owned by Inland Traction, an LVT predecessor, used to be on the left. Our southbound meets a northbound 1000 series car at Nace Siding in Telford. We pass a Sperry Rail Service detector car as our car makes a station stop on Railroad Street in Lansdale. Our special car is on brick-paved Marshall Street in Norristown. The regularly scheduled car passes us heading toward the Norristown station. At Rink Loop, the fans climb down from the emergency rear doorway of number 1030. The special car backs up to the ramp at the station, where the regular car, no longer able to run through to Upper Darby, backs down the ramp so that it can turn at nearby Rink Loop. Car 1030 is now the northbound regular service car, and Frank is aboard, shooting movies. We pass a local service car on Marshall Siding. LVT operated local service between Norristown and Solderton until service ended in 1951. Our car stops at the Brick LVT station at Lansdale, and passengers alight from and board the head end. Lansdale was also the end of the electrified commuter zone of the Reading's Bethlehem branch, but locomotive-hauled trains continued on to Bethlehem. An electric two-car multiple-unit train leaves for Philadelphia. The freight siding at Solderton gives an indication of the trolley freight service that continued until 1951. The car stops midway around the curve to pick up riders at the Solderton passenger station. The Solderton station shows the ravages of time. We continue down the Summit Street and onto the private right-of-way. For a meet with a 1000 car at Nice Siding. Hang on. We're alongside Reliance Road. Don't let that overgrown track fool you. We're moving along at up to 80 miles an hour. This entire area from Telford to Sellerville is now covered with modern homes. The car highballs along Old Bethlehem Pike, still a gravel road. Inside car 1030, passengers bounce along in heavily padded seats. There's a fast meet with a local car at school siding. The car barely slows down as it approaches NYRRE. That white fence still stands today, 6 decades later. The car climbs the south slope of South Mountain toward Summit Lawn. Down the north slope of South Mountain and into Emmaus Junction to meet a local car and another 1000 car. Truly historic car 1030 is northbound on South 8th Street at Lehigh Street in Allentown to wind up a trip on a memorable interurban railway that soon will be gone forever. Car 960 is on Cumberland Street near 10th Street in Allentown. The 3rd Avenue L, a classic third rail line that operated formidable multiple-unit electric cars, started at South Ferry and cut through Manhattan and the Bronx. Much of the line opened in the 1870s and 1880s and was closed in segments from 1950 to 1973. Frank Schlegel shot these vintage scenes in the 1930s and 1940s. We're at 47th Street, looking first north and then south. Not surprisingly, it was noise abatement efforts that resulted in the closure of the 3rd Avenue line. Elevated train action picks up with a 5-car southbound and 2 more trains in the distance as a northbound leaves the station. The 3rd Avenue L was a magnificent assemblage of steel girders. No place is this more evident than where the elevated rounds a double reverse curve, with more trains and tracks at a lower level. At the end of the curve, the tangent track enters the bridge across the Harlem River into the Bronx. What a massive structure it was in some respects. A mini Hellgate Bridge. Another reverse curve carried trains past the skyline and around a sharp curve, headed to the 129th Street station. Our train is on the center express track, as it splits its way between trains on outer local tracks. Flyovers? They existed in quantity as the elevated tracks weaved their way over and under each other. This one climbs to the Chatham Square Station. We are deep in the skyscraper canyons of Manhattan, only a few feet from the second and third stories of buildings. We are twisting away around the famous S-curve in lower Manhattan. The sharp squeal of flanges must have disturbed the entire neighborhood. The tracks cross over and twist as we near the south end of the line. The train slows to a stop at the South Ferry Terminal. A twin-stack steamship plies its way through the fog in New York Harbor to bring down the curtain on our brief trip back in time on the 3rd Avenue Elevated. These scenes are from the dawn of 8mm movies in the very early 1930s. We're at the Woodside Car Barn. Horsepower was still quite active in the early 1930s, as shown by this milk wagon. This street is virtually an alley as a car rolls through at a good clip. We are on the 165th Street double track between Flushing and Jamaica, as NYRRE car number 35 rolls past the camera. The College Point Causeway shows vintage 1920s automobiles sharing the road with Queens streetcars. College Point, which has not had a college since about 1850, was one of the most isolated neighborhoods in Queens. New York and Queens County Car 17 rolls down a snowbanked street in Queens. Followed by another car on what has to be a bitterly cold winter's day. Up next is a car number 16. These arch roof cars were built by the St. Louis Car Company in 1915 and acquired by the NYRRE in the early 1930s. We're at the corner of Northern Boulevard and Main Street in Flushing. A pair of cars waits to one side. While a car holds on the main track, another streetcar pulls out onto the main street, its trolley wheel arcing as it hits the overhead trolley wire switch. The King's Furniture Building overlooks College Point near the ferry terminal for boats to Classon's Point in the Bronx. Arch Roof Car 7 was built by Watson in 1915 and acquired secondhand from Auburn, New York in 1930. Car 24 was built by St. Louis in 1926. Number 31, a Watson 1925 product, came from Attleboro, Massachusetts in 1931. Numbers 23 and 26 were built in 1926 by St. Louis and were acquired by the New York and Queens County from Muskegon. Sharp curves and steep grades abounded on many streetcar lines. These cars are operating in College Point, which we suspect was Frank Schlegel's boyhood home. The NYRRE had 4 Bernie safety cars built in 1923 that it purchased in 1932 from Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. We're back at the Woodside Car Barn, looking at cars on the storage tracks. The red paint on these cars comes through on the ancient color film. 10 cars built by Jewett in 1910 with monitor roofs and longitudinal seating were purchased new. We're back out on Main Street in Flushing, watching the newer arch roof cars compete for space with early to mid-1930s automobiles. Who would want to argue with a lumbering streetcar? Frank is shooting in the street outside the Woodside car barn. The traction action continues. Was the broad cleared area across the street the first preparations for the 1939 New York World's Fair? There's heavy traffic on Main Street in front of the Flushing Center RKO Keith's Theater. Large red cars glide to a stop to discharge and pick up passengers. All the cars numbered in the 30s were built by Wasson and acquired by the NYNQC from New Jersey and Massachusetts. One of the older monitor roof cars rolls past. Note the people catcher on the rear of the car, designed to instantly drop down and save a pedestrian from going underneath a car if they were struck. Car 21, purchased in Michigan, swings past us and pauses for a rider. The Manhattan and Queens was one of those streetcar systems dealt a fatal blow by the construction of a competing subway. While large double-track center entrance two main cars provided dependable yeoman service to many in the Long Island City section of Queens, it was abandoned in 1937, not too long after Frank Schlegel shot these landmark movies. Center entrance cars roll under the massive concrete overhead elevated viaduct that covered much of the M&Q. We're on Queens Boulevard, near the 33rd Street station in Long Island City. Although the area is still called a city, Long Island City gave up its charter in 1898 to become part of New York City. We're out from under the L, and what's this? A non-center entrance city car? Car 114 enters Queens Plaza in Long Island City. Much of the M&Q had a high-speed private right-of-way when it was out from under the elevated. Even the snow was cleaned efficiently off the track. The storage tracks are home to the large trolleys. During the mid-1930s, political developments were making the future of trolleys in New York City very dicey and uncertain. The 23rd Street Crosstown line serviced its cars in this open area with open track pits. Tired Green Line's bay window monitor roof cars run on 23rd Street. A Green Line's car pulls up to the car barn. We see more action on 23rd Street as streetcars pass under the New York Central Railroad's elevated West Side freight line. Today, Amtrak uses the north end of the West Side line to reach Penn Station from its Albany line, while the south end is an elevated trail. Even in the 1930s, New York Railways operated cars that looked like refugees from a museum. Horse-drawn wagons had not completely disappeared. We're on 85th Street at 5th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, looking west towards Central Park. Instead of trolley poles and overhead wires, the cars drew their electric power using an electric current collector underneath the car, called a plow, that glided along in a slot or conduit in the pavement between the rails, clearly visible here. Green cars emerge from under the 3rd Avenue elevated. These cars are at 23rd Street and 1st Avenue, near the southern tip of Manhattan. A car eases to a stop at the East River Stub End Terminal on 23rd Street. With conduit power collection, there are no trolley poles to change. Green Line cars roll past the brick apartment buildings on 23rd Street. Cars roll out of the trolley station on Delancey Street and swing around the corner onto 23rd.
It doesn't sound right.
The conduit between the rails is visible. Most trolleys that reached the end of the track during the 1930s Depression years had a sad ending, and the New York Railways was no exception. The cars were summarily tipped over, wrecked, and burned in the Bronx. Only a short time before, these weathered cars had rolled through the streets of New York. The cars were set on fire to salvage the metal. There was no concern about open burning in the 1930s. Much of the New York railways went up in smoke when the system closed in 1936. New York City was not devoid of streetcars with the demise of New York railways. The progressive 3rd Avenue Railway soldiered on with its fleet of modern cars. Routes were mostly designated by letters. Much, but not all, of the 3rd Avenue trackage also had conduit power collection. A semi-convertible open car is to the right. We are deep in the canyons of Manhattan, watching the clean cars of the 3rd Avenue system efficiently handling their passenger loads. Despite this, the Mayor and City Council of New York wanted to get rid of trolleys. An A car makes a stop in New Rochelle, New York. These cars have trolley poles and operate off an overhead wire. A B car runs in Mount Vernon, New York, while an A car rolls the other way. We are at West Farms, looking east on Tremont Street and Boston Post Road. The New York, Westchester, and Boston Bridge is in the background. Layover cars are on the siding. Toonerville, folks, was a very popular newspaper comic strip in the 1920s and 1930s. The original H-line to Pelham Manor was the inspiration for the iconic Toonerville comics. A car heads down tree-lined Drake Avenue in New Rochelle. At Pelham Manor, an A car leaves as an H car pulls up, and a crewman uses a steel switch rod to throw the switch in the pavement. July 30th, 1937, the last day of trolley operations on the H-line, was observed with fanfare in Pelham. While it was hardly a Toonerville, a four-wheel Bernie car from Steinway Lines in Queens represented the rickety car in the comic strip. One of the replacement buses took a prominent place in the event. It had all the aspects of a festival, complete with signs and a Stutz Bearcat automobile. The Electric Railroaders Association was on hand. Fontaine Fox, creator of Toonerville, folks, was the guest of honor. Additional participants arrived by train, and great political hay was made praising the new buses. The Dyer Avenue trolley was the shortest line in New York and was operated with four-wheel Bernie safety cars. Bernies were notorious for rocking and bouncing, especially on rough track. The New York, Westchester, and Boston Viaduct passes over Dyer Avenue. With ends changed, the cars head back toward the city as an NYW and B car rolls over the bridge. Number 551, the Huffliner prototype, built as a sample by the J.G. Brill Trolley Company, is at the 3rd Avenue Railway's Garden Avenue Car Barn in Mount Vernon in 1937. The new car goes through its paces at Garden Avenue. It was the only Huffliner car to have a trolley pole until the cars were all sold to Sao Paulo, Brazil in 1947. The other trolleys at Garden Avenue were photographed. Street work involving cobblestones is underway on 42nd Street as semi-convertible X cars on the crosstown line cautiously roll through the site. This semi has its side panels removed, while the next semi is enclosed. We are on Yonkers Avenue, Dunwoody. We've made an abrupt fast forward to the early 1950s with a short New York Central diesel train crossing over the highway. A 3rd Avenue car, its days in New York numbered, emerges from the underpass. A car crosses over the Sawmill River Parkway in Yonkers. A trolley rolls down Yonkers Avenue. 44 of these cars, the largest and newest on the 3rd Avenue system, built in its own shops, were sold to Vienna, Austria. A number of them later went to trolley museums around the world, and their 3rd Avenue paint scheme and lettering were often restored. We're in Yonkers as a P car rounds a sharp curve. The automobiles have become sleeker. We're into the very early 1950s. Frank Schlegel knows the 3rd Avenue trolleys will stop running soon, and he is recording all that he can on movie film before service ends in 1952. We're on Webster Avenue in New Rochelle as a P car comes down the middle of the road. We saw A cars in downtown New Rochelle earlier in this 3rd Avenue railway segment. A P car rounds a sharp curve. The motorman pulls down the pole to reverse ends. Soon the car is on its way through tree-lined Hudson Park. An L-line car enters the turning loop. The car rolls through the heart of downtown New Rochelle. Automobiles duck out of the way as the car swings wide to make a turn. A J car comes toward us near New Rochelle. We transition to 42nd Street at Grand Central Terminal in New York City for shots of the X crosstown semi-convertible cars operating while picking up their electric power from the mid-track conduit. A car heads under the Grand Central Elevated Railway. We are out on Nebraham Avenue in the Bronx, pacing an S-Line car. The car is at the terminus of the line. Passengers board the car. Two S-cars pass each other at a siding on the single-track line. We pace an S-car as it heads inbound on Neverham Avenue. This edge-of-the-road operation was typical of many rural trolley lines throughout the world. What makes it so unusual here is that it's really in New York City. These cars could really move along, and it helps to have a nearly empty street when pacing the car. Two S-cars meet and continue on their respective ways. We are now on the number 4 line on Jerome Avenue in the Bronx. As the 3rd Avenue Railway's number 4 car rolls away, symbolically into the evening dusk, it's time to remember those earlier days of clanging streetcars that served so many of our cities. Gone, but not forgotten.
Wow.
Well, an all-star
You can see
cast,
the
huh?
entire line of
Oh,
Green
that
Frog
was
products
great.
at www.greenfrog.com.
Okay. I'll get
Oh, that was colossal.
It was
Was.
great.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, I'm just thinking all
Hi.
the way through this, the presentation here, it's a shame that more people from the Electric Railroaders Association weren't aware that we were doing this tonight.
Oh, my
It seemed to be
God.
advertised,
Yeah.
but for some
you,
reason.
you don't know, you
they
know,
missed-
they kind of parochial. It's like they
They
Oh,
were
do their own thing.
This was really something. I hadn't seen most of this material before tonight,
Wow.
except for some of the 3rd Avenue. What we covered.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of that 3rd Avenue material I had seen in a Gary Grohl program.
Oh, yeah.
Everything else to me was, well, some of the 3rd Avenue L too, but good deal that I hadn't seen.
In the credits, it mentions the railroad enthusiast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
a
mentioned
few times
Alan H.
NYRRE
Roberts
and
is the
NYRRE
ringmaster.
appear on the
Crawl.
same thing.
Alan Roberts also.
Yeah,
Yes.
Mhm.
He got top billing.
right.
Well, Alan probably located a lot of it, maybe had the films.
Right,
Frank Schlegel was the photographer.
right.
That was really good. Glad we got the meeting membership year off to a good start.
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
I think we did.
Next month, be on hand for a seldom covered road, the Lehigh Valley Railroad,
Oh,
and
Okay.
through New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York, covering the time period approximately from 1960 to 1975.
Hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah. Something that's seldom covered. So we'll look forward to that. Now, before the program started, Sheldon, you had alluded to some remarks you wanted to make after the show.
Okay, very good. On a non-rail thing over at the museum, I had the largest group that I ever took around.
Wow.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, I mean, these are all mature people. I didn't have to worry about kids my comments would go over them. but they were
Great.
very appreciated. They knew all the stuff that, like the World War II kitchen. They were marveled that they saw the ration stamps in the window.
Well, I think probably the museum's going to get a lot of visits because for that air war over the eastern part of the NATO states.
Mhm.
What type of aircraft will be involved in those initial dogfights between the various NATO countries and Russia, do you anticipate, Sean?
Well, let's see. If you're talking about the NATO aircraft, we have F-16s, Saab Gripens, Euro Typhoons. There's a few. Germany still has a few tornadoes. Poland still has a few old Soviet Su-22s. And
Now, what type of guns are on these craft? Do they just shoot missiles or they still have machine guns?
what, the fighters?
Yeah.
Oh, no, these jets things, they have 20, 30 millimeter cannon,
Ah,
but you're not going to actually fire on that unless it's the real thing. So
well, they've been given the green light
yeah,
from
well,
Ruder and Trump. They
yeah,
said to shoot them down. Now, what
Yeah.
type of Russian aircraft will they be opposed?
yeah. All right. On the Russian aircraft that's coming over, the one that I've seen is the MiG-31 Foxhound. I've also
Ah,
seen, the late model Sukhois, which are like fifth, sixth generation fighters.
I'm at end the recording, the meeting.
okay, that